Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. In this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, I'm so pleased to have with us Danielle Hansen. Danielle is an adjunct professor at the University of St. Thomas and the University of Minnesota. She teaches negotiation strategy, supply chain, and operations management. And in addition, she's the founder and president of Strategic Training Endeavors, a women-owned training and consulting company focused on providing expertise to close skill gaps and imparities throughout the workforce while retaining talent in an inclusive environment. Danielle, you're speaking my language. I'm all about inclusive leadership. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much, Simone.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. I want to ask you about your journey. Tell us what I didn't read. Tell us a little bit about your career journey upwards, and what didn't I share in the intro with your bio? What do you want our audience to know about you?
Sure. So I've always been a go-getter. I've always been one to step up to any challenges that were presented in front of me, and I always take that most difficult path. So from my standpoint, I graduated from the University of St. Thomas with a triple major in undergrad in operations management, legal studies and business, and Spanish.
Wow.
And from there, ended up going directly to get an internship with Medtronic. And with that internship, it really kind of set my career path and course as I went forward. And in that particular opportunity, I was presented with a sink or swim situation. You know, a lot of good practical experience, actually negotiating and being thrown into the negotiation realm where I was negotiating multi-billion-dollar agreements as an intern. So great practical experience throughout that journey. And it was a great opportunity to really continue through from a movement standpoint and take on more responsibilities through each of my, different career jumps. So after spending about 6.5 years at Medtronic, I had the opportunity to also go into Lean and Six Sigma, get my green belt certification, and take that over to Honeywell, which was an organization at the time and still today that really lives and breathes Lean and Six Sigma. So to feel that heartbeat kind of throughout that career journey and continuing in strategic sourcing for electronic box build assemblies and third-party products. And then from there, went back into medical device, which is an area that I truly have passion for. There's very few careers where you can say you're impacting or saving someone's life on a daily basis, through what you're doing. So continued that journey with St. Jude Medical. Moved into a different role within Stryker endoscopy out in San Jose, California. Got a lot of opportunities to work with suppliers, work internationally and globally, and really continue to build up my career in supply chain and strategic sourcing in various functions within regards to that. And then moved to CPC, where I was able to lead a transformation from a director of strategic sourcing standpoint. And then continued on with that journey. And at that point in time, also got into teaching. So at the University of St. Thomas, teaching in the executive and MBA level classes.
Wow. All I have to say is wow, wow, wow. There's a consistent theme of education. You started out with the triple major. That's impressive. So did you always have it figured out, or where does this drive come from?
Sure. So no, I didn't always have it figured out. I had actually thought doing my triple major that I was going to go to law school. And at the end of it, right in my senior year, it was one of those things. I was working 50 hours a week to put myself through school, doing a triple major in addition to that. And I just hit a roadblock as I was going through the applications. I had sat for the LSAT exam. It was something that I was very interested in, but at the same time, I just couldn't make that switch. So from my standpoint, I kind of sat back and said, this is a time where I should be looking at opportunities as well and seeing, what else is out there. And that's where I landed the position with Medtronic as an intern. And through my performance was hired within 2 months of that internship full time. So it really launched that career and, that focus, and continued to challenge me and provide me with opportunities from a negotiation perspective.
Well, when would you say this show is about being in the driver's seat for your career? And when would you say did it become clear to you that you were responsible for your career outcomes? In essence, really being in the driver's seat. When did that become clear to you?
That was early on in my career. So as an intern at Medtronic, I was really presented with a sink or swim. I had all of the good book knowledge, but it was, how do I apply that directly into what I'm doing and make sure that I understand as we go forward what needs to be utilized, and really push myself and drive myself to learn as quickly as possible on the job. So very early on in my career is when I actually established that, and continued throughout each of my different career steps to ensure that I was getting any of the knowledge that I needed. I was consistently stepping up to take on new challenging opportunities where many people would have probably stepped back. I stepped forward and really focused on, how do I learn more? How do I get these stretch assignments? And what else can I do to make an even bigger impact within the organizations?
Sounds like a great strategy. So tell our audience, um, what would you say is your formula, Danielle, for successfully owning your career?
Sure. So my formula is, any opportunity that it presents itself, you should focus on that as a challenge, as an opportunity to really move forward. Now, I've been presented with a significant amount of challenges, not only on the job, but also from an education perspective. I've had opportunities open up where people have asked me to come to, like, the University of St. Thomas and provide information on how they can better mirror what working individuals or executives need from their both undergraduate as well as MBA degrees, and provide them that information. So I provided that negotiation was a key aspect of that I've continued to utilize throughout. I was presented with an opportunity then where they said, we can clearly see you're passionate about this area. Would you like to teach? And this is a point where, it's kind of that inflection point where a lot of people step back and go, well, I don't know that I'm qualified, right? I've never done that. And we as women especially focus on that, where we say, if we don't have every single one of those, attributes, or, we've had those experiences in the past, we tend to step back away from the table. And I want to encourage others to really step forward and ensure that that's not the case. Ensure that when those opportunities present themselves, you figure out how to step up. You have the confidence behind that and the drive, and you have the value for yourself, that you understand what value you would bring to that organization. And really, I would encourage people to step up into those challenges, because those opportunities are things that present themselves and bring your career even further along when you take those risks, throughout your career. And another risk, that I had recently was with regards to Upward. The book, I had Bridget reach out to me out of the clear blue, and it was something where I had never been an author before, and it was an opportunity, for me to again step up and to try something new. Again, it's something that can be scary. It can have a lot of anxiety that comes along with it, but the benefits of stretching yourself, challenging yourself throughout your career in many different assets, provides a lot from a career standpoint, as well as a personal life fulfillment.
You said a lot there, Danielle. Absolutely. So, saying yes, it reminds me of the book Shonda Rhimes wrote about saying yes to opportunities, and I'm not sure if it's Richard Branson or whoever else said that, when these opportunities present themselves, say yes and then figure it out. What is the messaging that you're telling yourself uh, to push through? What are the affirmations, the mindset? What additional tools help you to build the muscle to, in fact, say yes?
Yeah, so my focus has always been on what your value is, and making sure that we, especially as women, understand that specific value. So, what specifically differentiates us? And how do we use those differentiating factors to bring to the table? So from my standpoint, the value that I have and that I bring to the different organizations, I have a lot of great negotiation skills. Working with those relationships, how do I tie that in, from a teaching standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, as well as all the previous experiences that I've had as I go forward on each of those different opportunities. And throughout my career, it has been one very much focused on learning. So making sure that with each step, I'm learning something and I'm figuring out how specifically can I do this. And when I look at those affirmations, it's what have I done in the past? What have I been successful at? And continue to tell myself that even though I was presented with this challenge, maybe it was the teaching opportunity from the start, right? When I was presented with that, I had never done it before, but I was able to accomplish it. And for each and every one of those opportunities, looking back and saying, this was new to me, but I stepped up and I met that challenge, right? And I bring value. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we as women need to understand is that value that we truly bring to the table in each and every opportunity. And as we continue to build our careers and as we continue to, be essentially meet each of those challenges, we build those affirmations as we go,
Mm.
right? And then reminding ourselves of those affirmations with each and every step or new thing that comes forward in our lives and in our career journeys. That's what truly matters.
Mm. Mm. Love that. Love that so much. So I'm wondering, Danielle, if you were to title a book for your career body of work, what would the title of the book be?
Sure. So the title of my book would be Never Back Away from a Challenge and to Know Your Value.
Mm. Mm. Never back away from a challenge. Know your value. Yeah, the value word. So can value trip us up? I mean, we've been talking about, really walking in your value. Um, what strategies would you say help women to really walk in their value?
Sure. So I think when we approach value, I approach it from a negotiation standpoint as well. So not only understanding what that value is, and you can understand your value based on the successes that you've had, based on some careful reflection on what you truly value and how that's tied into yourself as a person and what you deliver in each of those different experiences, as well as some reflection from your community, right? Having family members, having friends, having colleagues, coworkers, whatnot, also providing you with feedback on that value they see also helps us as we're going through. But then if we look at it from a negotiation frame of reference, it's we need to articulate as women the value that we're bringing to each of those different opportunities. And because we do have different male female dynamics in the workplace, we need to be comfortable continuing to reiterate that value to make sure that others hear that value and continue to say, yes, we understand that and we see that value. Because at the end of the day, women oftentimes step back when it comes to tooting your own horn.
Mm.
We step back and we don't enter into that. We think that we can just continue pushing forward, doing a great job, and we're going to be rewarded for that. But we also need to be reinforcing those messages. We need to be marketing ourselves as we go into this career world to ensure that others are hearing what specifically we are doing, the value that we drive within those organizations, because our male colleagues are doing that,
Mm.
but we as females are not.
Mhm, mhm. So well said. I wonder if you can help us with how do we market ourselves? I love what you just said about marketing our careers and the challenge around tooting your own horn as women. Tell us some things that have worked for you in terms of marketing your career expertise.
Yeah, so it's really talking through here are the different things and here's the different value that I bring to that organization. So for instance, on the negotiation side, I have significant amount of experience from a negotiation perspective, not only in my career path, but also working with coaching through my strategic endeavors, training courses, and consulting. And then also through my University of St. Thomas, as well as University of Minnesota teaching experiences. So it's been a great ability to tie all that together and really focus on what that value is. Then sitting down, reflecting on it and providing that message, those succinct messages that you can tie back into what specifically you're doing and making sure that you have essentially almost like an elevator speech of your value each and every time that you're going into the different situations that you may be approaching from a career perspective.
I think I want your episode to be something around value. Find your
Yes.
value, or walk in your value, or something like that. Uh, I often ask my guests to tell me what they think their title should be, but it often comes up throughout the course of
Yeah.
the interview. And I see a lot around the importance of value.
Yes. It's very important.
Would you share with us resources that have been helpful to you on your career journey?
Yeah, so I'm an avid reader. So
Mm.
from my standpoint, it's just a constant, reaching out, understanding what are the new books that are coming out, reading through those. Also, anything on negotiation. Women tend to step back when it comes to negotiation entirely. And the more we as women can understand the benefits of negotiating, understand that even though it comes with a lot of anxiety, even though it's something that the movies and Hollywood has created with this adversarial nature that causes a lot of women to step back because we focus more on the relationship aspects and making sure that we have good relationships set up. We need to focus on the negotiation skills behind that. And that's the one area that I would say women really need to focus on as we go forward, is ensuring that we're able to negotiate, ensuring that we understand that process and tying that directly into our lives.
Are there any specific books that you would recommend specifically on negotiation?
Yeah, so Never Split the Difference is a
Mm.
great book by Chris Voss.
Mhm.
It's actually one that I teach off of in my class. So that one's a really good one. The other one, so not specifically on negotiation, but How Women Rise, as well as Upward, are phenomenal books for women.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, as we begin to wrap up, are there any parting words that you have for our audience just in terms of soaring in their careers?
I would just again reiterate, make sure as you're going throughout your career, no matter which step you are within your career, focus on those challenging opportunities. Focus on pushing yourself into them, regardless of if you understand what specifically is entailed within that. Work to get the learnings, work to challenge yourself, and continue to make sure you're driving those value statements throughout all you're doing within your working world.
I love that. Love that. Just another perspective for us to think about and to help us walk in our excellence. Well, Danielle, tell our audience how they can continue to stay in contact with you if they'd like to do so.
Sure. For audience members that would like to reach out, my email is Danielle, DANIELLE, at strategictrainingendeavors.com. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Or you can also connect on LinkedIn.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Danielle, it has been a huge pleasure to have you on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. We thank you for all the wisdom and all the gems that you shared with the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simone. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.